What you just listened to was a new battle theme in Final Fantasy VII Remake. A lot of stuff's been popping up over the past couple of weeks that I haven't had an opportunity to talk about, but there's been a lot of information for Final Fantasy VII Remake over the past little while that I think would be good to put into a video form in some way and sort of share my thoughts on what the hell is going on. The big one is that a lot of people had their chance to play the game similar to myself at E3, over like 2,000 to 3,000 people in total, but the playable demo that we all kind of were experiencing was the same one that I played, that you played if you were at E3, and everyone's impression of it is up right now because it did a very good job of impressing some people. Believe it or not, Final Fantasy VII Remake ended up taking the game of the show at E3 this year, which I absolutely think it deserves because it was impressing on fronts that we weren't expecting to, and it was doing something that was almost impossible, of making this seemingly lost game to time actually real, with a real release date, and actually playable. And that's a big deal for a lot of people, especially when it came to journalist sites and everyone that had a chance to play it, especially for the sake of nostalgia, remembering the old one, compared to how new the new one is, and it is dramatically different. I can't help but reiterate several times, and we've been doing this for a lot of years, that Final Fantasy VII Remake, while they have been described as episodic in nature, isn't a really good way to describe the way this multi-part series is going to be. It is multiple parts. Think of the Star Wars series, or the original Star Wars movies, where you have A New Hope, you have Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. All those movies are telling an overarching narrative, but at the same time, they all have their own contained stories with their own unique characters, and in some situations, some characters come back and some characters don't. So that's what you kind of could consider Final Fantasy VII Remake to be. If anyone's familiar with the Xenosaga games, I barely played them at all, much less the first one, only a little bit. But from what I understand, Xenosaga is a contained series of games. Each one is different, only so much technically carries over in terms of characters and lore and stuff like that. But really, there are 3 different games that are telling a big story, and that's what we kind of got to consider with FF7 Remake. The biggest thing that I'm having a tough time wrapping my head around is that this game is still titled Final Fantasy VII Remake. I don't know if they're going to go with a part 2 or a part 3 or however many parts there might be, because Kitase did say that they have plans just for this game right now, and there is going to be multiple games, but they don't know how big that scope is going to be. They don't know how many titles they're going to have. But to be perfectly honest, I'm happy the more FF7 we get. As long as these games are full games and we don't feel cheated in any way. A lot of people are being questionable about that, and I would be the most critical of that than anybody. But from what I've seen, the level of quality that they're trying to hit is extremely high. And once this first game has sort of been established, they even did say at E3 that the later subsequent versions, or, new parts to the series, aren't going to take nearly as long because they have a lot of established bases. So, we've already had a lot of discussions in terms of what could be coming in the future, but let's talk about what was specifically discussed in a Famitsu article right after E3. The one thing the developers wanted to talk about was this Keeper of Fate, which was the mysterious, weird presence that pops up in one of the trailers that sort of floats around the characters. This is a brand new element to Final Fantasy VII. The developers hope that the players are going to like it, but this is a part of their revamped storytelling. There's going to be new things that were different from the previous game that are most likely going to take the story of FF7 and sort of wrap it up nicely with each game that they're trying to present. Since each one of these games are going to have a proper beginning, middle, and end, they're going to need to find ways to bring in the overall arcing story to a close. So even if there was some stuff that might not be in the original, it probably has heavy references to the original in some ways, and the way it's going to tie into the overall narrative should make sense in the end, if they have their storytelling chops up to snuff. They were asked if the events of the original game are all included, and they pretty much said that they're going to remain the same. They said that if it depends, for instance, you're going to have some weird stuff at the Honeybee Inn, which was kind of an odd situation and a very unique one that happens within Final Fantasy VII Remake. Other stuff between like snowboarding and all these weird gimmicks that happen in Final Fantasy VII, this is what they're talking about. They say that now a place like the Honeybee Inn would be significantly rearranged in a more modern style, and the developers are going to try to recreate that space and try to fit the visuals into the current worldview of the game. It makes it seem like a lot of the very unique situations you run into Final Fantasy VII that gives the game its wonderful variety should be preserved in some way. And between what the developers were telling us in the behind closed doors demo session, they did also reiterate that a lot of people have a lot of specific memories about a lot of things in FF7, and it feels like, or it seems like based on what they're saying, that they're going to try to honor that. So I really wouldn't be worried about the Cloud cross-dressing sequence if you have, Aerith and Tifa and everyone goes to the Corneo Mansion. pretty sure it's going to be there. I mean, I'd almost bet like 90% that that's going to happen, so I wouldn't be worried too much. While the main story is not going to be specifically changed, they did say that events will be different, like the one we saw during the trailer. There's actually a motorbike sequence or an escape out of what looks to be the first bombing run, or maybe one of the first bombing runs where you have Jesse at your side. And it's a motorcycle sequence just similar to the original game, which happens much later. There's probably going to be expanded moments like that. And I think that's, once again, a good reason to build tension in those moments, a good reason to amplify what was normally a small situation in FF7 to sort of match everything we know of the original, just make it bigger and crazier in the new one. The big thing they also keep mentioning is the fact that the game is 2 Blu-ray discs long. And a lot of people are thinking that, is the second disc going to be the second part of the game? Absolutely not. Final Fantasy VII Remake is a Midgar story. It is the story of the characters in Midgar, but expanded way beyond the scope of what the original is, between its like short 6-hour first playthrough run. You're gonna have to think of this, you have to twist your head to think of the original FF7 and sort of throw that out. You're gonna follow similar story paths and beats, but tell a narrative that only takes place within Midgar and the characters that you meet there. The big question is, who is going to show up in Midgar? Is Red 13 going to show up at the end of the game? Most likely not. Is Red 13 potentially going to show up a bit earlier to be an integral part of the party, to a point of which he's actually a part of the story much more, unlike the original? Maybe. Or he could be saved for the second game. There's a lot of possibilities that could be happening here, but they did say that they're not going to be adding new characters. You're not going to be introducing brand new characters to the storyline that weren't present in the original game. They go on to talk about Tifa and Aerith and how they look and how good they look and stuff like that, but they also talk about Tifa and her redesign and the way her costume's been redesigned, how she's essentially wearing a sportier outfit to support her heavier upper body. But at the same time, a lot of people had a lot of criticisms against this. All I can say is that's what a sports bra does. This is the least interesting thing of this entire conversation between what they're changing of the game, so I'm not going to spend too much time with it. All I'll say is I really dig the way they modernized Tifa, and I like the way they're modernizing every single character in the roster so far, so let's have that be that. And the really interesting one is them talking about the battle system of the game. They mentioned that they went through a lot of scrap and build during the development, but now they decided on a specific direction. While the base is action, the team wanted to make it as enjoyable as possible for those that like the original gameplay, which we have seen a lot with the considerations of the active system between ATB, you having shortcuts to make it more actiony, and stuff of the like that we've been presented with in the previous trailers. They say this is how the hybrid system was born, and you could see differences of this from the original Final Fantasy VII when they were shown off the remake back in 2015. Battle has changed a lot since that one, between the way the characters move, but the one thing that seems to have stayed is the fact that characters can switch to other characters. You can actually go from one character to the other, which has been an integral part of this battle system since the very start, and to me personally, I will say is the most dramatic of all of them. That is something that has been really damn cool, and was one of my favorite things of Final Fantasy 15 when they eventually added it in the Royale version. Amplified the battle system of that game greatly, other than just playing as Noctis. So I'm extremely happy about it. I want to play with other characters. I'm excited to see what they do with team mechanics because, of course, if you're going to be running around with multiple characters in a game that you can control in battle, you're assuming that they're going to be working together with each other in ways other than, I'm stuck, please get me unstuck. So I'm very excited for that. We've only seen so much of the battle system so far, and they said they had a lot more to show. They're just not showing anything at E3. And last but not least, the big thing is the Materia system. Materia, as we know from the original Final Fantasy VII, is one of the best parts of the game, but it takes a long time to get really damn fun. Materia allows for so much customization between materia combinations of different colors and attributes, and combinations between any of the varieties in the game. You could come up with some very unique stuff and some very game-breaking stuff towards the end, but it takes a long time to get there. One of the most creative things you can do with materia in the first, like, Midgar portion of the game is essentially slapping all materia with a spell or healing. And it's not that intuitive. It's like, okay, this is all right. It doesn't take a little while until you get enemy skill and many other things, HP absorb and blue materias to modify things, and attack materias that change how many times you attack, how far you can attack. That's where it starts to get really enjoyable. But they did say the materia system in FF7 Remake is going to be largely the same to the original, the way it works, the way you apply materia to certain weapons and gear potentially. And that has me really excited, but they did say some of it is going to go away. Some stuff does not fit the new battle system, but they will be adding additional materia that is going to be different from the original game. which makes a lot of sense just because you're not going to need to use some materia that was present in the original turn-based game in the new one. But at some times, like speed up materia where you have haste or something like that, that's going to be a dramatic gameplay difference. I'm excited to hear that there's going to be, hopefully, customization involved. Like I said, one of the most important parts of materia was the freedom it kind of gave you to come up with busted and crazy things that it could do. And as long as those possibilities are still present in Final Fantasy VII Remake, that's the most important thing for me personally. Give us reasons to explore, give us reasons to spend time with this materia, to level up, to do certain things. And I do really like the fact that this game is going to be more action-based. So if you have materia that literally will be giving you new special moves between, quad cut or double cut or slash all or whatever the hell it might be, they're going to come up with materia moves that you'll be able to give to characters, is what I'm thinking in my head. So that sounds kind of awesome. Maybe potentially there's going to be more mobility if there's a double jump materia. I'm already getting excited thinking about it. You can get Sora's weird fly from Kingdom Hearts. Maybe that's going a little far. I'm just saying there's a lot of possibilities here, especially with how open the battle system is and teaming up between characters. Maybe you can have materia that does unique team-up attacks for... Damn it, I keep thinking of stuff and it makes me really excited, but materia is one of my favorite things of Final Fantasy VII, and every time I go back to the game, I play it again, I still find new crazy materia combinations to end up killing Ruby Weapon and Diamond Weapon and Emerald Weapon and all these crazy bosses in the game in new and different ways. So that's about it for all the information that they had after E3. I got a big personal hope, and I think I'll compile this into a video at some point, my things that I would love to see in Final Fantasy VII Remake, my top 5 things I would love to see in Final Fantasy VII Remake, maybe for a later video, because there's a few things gameplay-wise that I really want to see, because at this point, I'm not worried about the dialogue, I'm not worried about the characters' voices, I'm not worried about the visuals, and I'm not really worried about the storytelling. It all seems that that stuff is being preserved in ways that'll make the fans of the original happy, while also feeling extremely new and going in directions that you aren't expecting. Pretty much, you need to think of Final Fantasy VII Remake as Resident Evil 2 Remake. That game took everything you expected of what RE2 was, sort of flipped it on its head, subverted your expectations, but also did it in ways that was satisfying to fans of the old one and people that were just jumping into the new one. I'm not even kidding, so many people have used this comparison, but Final Fantasy VII Remake of this E3 was the Resident Evil 2 Remake that we experienced last E3. So that's a very good thing. RE2 Remake, in my opinion, is better than the original, and RE2 is one of my favorite Resident Evil, much less games of all time. So I'm very excited about this, but I'm more excited for more info. The question is, when the hell are we going to be getting more info about FF7 Remake? And the good chance is that it's going to be somewhere around Gamescom or Tokyo Game Show, and that I believe is going to be August or September 2019. So that's all I got, guys. I'm looking forward to a lot more stuff. If you have anything that we would love to discuss about this game, please let me know, but I do have a special announcement. Later today, I am going to be starting my Final Fantasy VII playthrough that I've been waiting 4 years to do. Yes, I played through FF7 on stream back in 2015 after the game was announced, and I told myself I would not play the game again until they had more concrete information, until there was a new trailer or they were going to release something about the game. And 4 years later, here we are. We've played it, we have a release date, and I'm ready to go back and experience the original, but I'm going to do it much different than you might remember. I'm going to be installing new mods, the new threat mod, which changes a lot of gameplay stuff and changes a lot of gameplay scenarios that a lot of people have very highly praised. And there's some fantastic looking mods throughout the game that fully change the backgrounds with an incredible AI learning system that has redone and digitized the background graphics and any pixel art, filling it in many ways like content aware. It is ridiculous looking, and it makes FF7 better looking than anything I have ever seen. So I spent hours, like over 10 hours, getting all these mods installed and set up and working, and there is some very impressive stuff that fans have done. This practically is Final Fantasy VII Remastered. FF7 Remake is a remake that is a whole new game. This is kind of what you would expect if you were looking forward to Square just taking the old game and making it look really damn good. I hate to tell you guys, I don't know if Square is going to do that, but fans already have, and it is ridiculously impressive. And we're going to start it up today on my stream at twitch.tv/Maximilian_dude around 8 o'clock Pacific time. I am very much looking forward to that. FF7 is still my favorite game of all time, next to Bloodborne, which is number 2. So I'm curious what the new threat mod is going to add to the game. I'm curious how things are going to look as we get through it, because I have never seen the backgrounds, much less much of the character art, look as good as it does in this mod. So it's going to be a very new experience for myself as well. As always, dudes, thank you a ton for watching. I'll be back, and I'll be putting compilations of that playthrough up here on YouTube as soon as they are completed, and hopefully you get a chance to check them out. My name is Max, and I'll see you dudes next time.